Today's show is brought to you by Hopsdirect.com. Grown in the esteemed Yakima Valley on the Peterball family farm, Hopsdirect.com offers the widest variety of hops available online at incredibly competitive pricing. It's simple. They grow hops, they sell hops, and they ship hops straight from their family-owned farm to your doorstep. Producing the highest quality hops is Hopsdirect.com's passion, and they're proud to be an independent grower in the craft beer industry. Go to Hopsdirect.com right now and get what you need to make your brew day better. That's Hopsdirect.com. Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch-right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
How to find a CO2 leak, CO2 cylinder and pressure fermentation, brewing multiple batches of the same style in one day, and tethering your regulator to a CO2 cylinder. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 301. Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com. Click on that submit a question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call, be Todd's best friend. Leave us a voicemail to 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. I am joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com down there, Mr. James Carlson, as well as the President and Chief Kegwasher of kegconnection.com, Mr. Todd Burns. James, I haven't seen that shirt on you in forever. I love those shirts. But, you know...
Except the logo curls up like a chip.
It does, yeah. Because you're so
they're
long.
made out of old recycled trash bags, so you sweat in them like a dog.
I was just about to say, Todd hates them because we got them there. I didn't realize polyester was like Todd's kryptonite. I had no idea. You hate polyester, dude. You hate large vinyl, and you hate polyester.
That's so funny.
Stay away from all flammable substances when you're wearing that shirt, James.
That's pretty
Old recycled toothbrushes,
trash bag,
plastic trash bags,
shirts. I think you're the one who picked the shirt out, though, Todd. I just think
I think I did not.
You're right. That was the same year we got those shirts to work the booth, and I made the shirts we were giving out. And it was one big
sweat ring, right?
Kind of like this Kolsch one. Actually, this isn't vinyl. This Kolsch shirt, which we're selling at our store, go to homebrewhappyhour.com. Kolsch Till I Die. This is actually screen printed, but our Homebrew Happy Hour ones, the printer we had, I didn't specify how I wanted them made. It's not their fault. They did a really good job, but it was a big vinyl thing. So Todd's wearing it like, this shit's sticking to me. I hate this. I hate this. And then
I was getting sweat under my breast. I just want you to know.
Your breasticles.
Yes, his breasticles were sweating. Oh, guys, I can't lie. Episode 300 was kind of a blur. Some people in the feedback told me that we held it together well. It got downhill from there, friends. If you were watching,
yeah. Josh was like, "I'm gonna party all night." I think he made it till about 8:30.
It was about 8:45. Yeah, I was crawled in bed.
That was a lot of fun.
Oh, it was so much fun. It was so much fun. I didn't post them because I only got we all hopped in the hot tub and Liz took a picture that made James and I look kind of like lovers. And I was like, I want to post this to Instagram, but you know what? You're not even on there anymore. I could have done it and not even worried about it. I could have said whatever I wanted, and you wouldn't have known. Darn it. Just gave up my whole thing. But no, thank you all again. Let me reiterate how much we enjoy what we do week to week. And the podcast is probably, I'm not going to speak for these guys, but it's my favorite thing to do every week. And
absolutely.
Being able to have done it for 300 episodes, we are thoroughly grateful to everyone in the community, those who are in our Patreon paying Trub Club members, and those just anyone who listens and have supported us by sharing the show, commenting on Reddit threads where I don't think I'm allowed anymore, or Facebook groups or whatever, and the business you send to Kekenich. And I hate admitting this, and I wish you had gotten his name so I could give him a shout out because he listens to the show. We're about to record. Todd's even on video, but Todd and James can't help themselves from working. Like the phone rings and they're like, "Oh, gotta answer." No, we're about to record. So Todd answers the phone and it's a guy. And 2 seconds in, he goes, "Is this Todd Burns?" Oh, I had vomit in my mouth, like, because Todd loves that. Todd loves that. And
I don't know. What do you mean? I love that. I don't even know.
Oh, that's why you're doing this. You're doing.
Well, I like it when you're listening.
Yeah, it was great. Oh, it was great. And then, but I made some smart alecky comment, and Todd goes, "Well, we'll get the phones going to you right now if you want to answer phones." So, the worst part's going to be people calling in who listen and they realize it's not a shtick. I'll be like, "Hold on, let me transfer you to someone who knows." Beep, 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 and
yeah, exactly.
Let me start getting in. We do have we have 4 questions, but let me get through this small talk. If y'all didn't notice the bumper at the top, welcome our brand new official sponsors, hopsdirect.com, to the Homebrew Happy Hour family. They are the provider of the hops and all the Trub Club recipes we are shipping out. And y'all have been James, you've been ordering from them for a long time.
Before Todd moved into town, that's the only place I would get hops from.
You've been,
because we were doing big batches, so we were using pounds of hops.
I was going to say that's kind of their bread and butter, is getting people hops to their doorstep in whatever quantity you need, right? Like some people only need a few ounces, but a big group like y'all brewing on Big Bertha, y'all were ordering pounds at a time. So, and Todd, you as a retailer as well have been ordering from Hops Direct plenty as well.
Yep.
So we're very familiar with
good company, very good, very
super
good people.
Good family.
Truly a family-run business. I mean, I think a lot of people there are family. So
I think it's the 5th generation of pewter balls working the farm is what I did some homework. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see the video. I didn't take any of that footage. I stole it from all their YouTube videos. I would love to go to the pewter ball farm and get some drone footage and film ourselves, but they already have the footage, so I stole it from that. But what was that look for?
Because we could, us looking up at the drone.
Oh, up at the drone. Yeah. I will say this though. So I did some drone work. So I forgot to mention on episode 300, and we took that cannabis question. It would have been worth mentioning. I got hired to produce a cannabis-based jiu-jitsu show a couple weeks ago. And maybe it's because the guys are potheads. I did some drone footage for some of the promo stuff. They were all floored, like, whoa. Like people, drone footage, especially to potheads, I think, just really blows their mind. Like, the camera was like up there, man. Like, yeah, it's a little drone. That's so cool. I was like, I got to work with potheads more often. These guys are easily amused. I loved it. But yeah, the Cannabis Combat Club. You
just alienated a bunch of our listeners, I bet.
They're listening going, that is me, man. That is me. But anyways, so official new sponsors of the show, hopstrat.com. Oh, I was going to mention, we... still on the look for, I'm trying to get a malt sponsor. Been talking with some companies that when we started talking with them, it was like the beginning of COVID and people were like, oh, we'll get back with you. It's the unknown, blah, blah, blah. It's been like 2.5 years. I'm trying to get us a malt sponsor, but that is segueing me into, I think my pop and you keep telling me to brew, Todd. I think it's time to brew the annual breakfast stout. And,
nice.
And so I need to get those ingredients ordered. I was going to go, there's a kind of a local shop in San Antonio. Did you hear Homebrew Party? They shut down. They're done.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just found out yesterday because I was there to call and see like, I don't want to bother Todd and James about making sure I have the ingredients. Wonder what it goes for there. You call, yeah, and then I looked online. They closed down. That means in Central Texas, and listeners, someone correct me if I'm wrong, if you're in the Hill Country, Austin, greater Austin, San Antonio area. I think SoCo is the only local shop now, which they're great people.
Wow.
SoCo,
That's amazing. As big areas that is.
Isn't that wild, dude? Isn't that wild?
Austin Homebrew Supply was that was their market forever. Yeah. So that's probably good. SoCo probably will do pretty well now.
I hope they're good people. You've met them before, Todd, at a Homebrew Con.
Yeah.
And they buy from. I believe they buy your stuff through a distributor, James. But they resell Sam Becker stuff. And
okay,
they're good. They're a young couple. I think they're even younger than me, and I'm like the token young guy on this show. But they're good people. But anyways, I'm gonna have to get some ingredients. I don't know. I saw y'all placed an order with one of our vendors and it shipped. I don't know how to get these ingredients on a future order, Todd. But that's a conversation off air. I just want to.
Okay.
But I'm committing to. I'm ready to brew this year's batch, and maybe what I'll do is bring my pop up with me sometime between now and mid-November, and we brew it on a brow Todd, so there's 15 gallons. So that way James can have a proper keg himself, and then you get your keg, and then we'll get our keg.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think it'd be a lot of fun to have him here as well.
It's either that, or I think he thinks I'm bluffing about putting the brow Todd in my garage, so we might have to do that too, just to show him I'm serious.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're gonna get, but I'm gonna get in the 3-way at some point. Someone called me out from episode 300 and asked, "What's the California 3-way?" I don't know, guys. I just say things. I have no idea what I meant, what I meant when I said that. I just say things. That's the story. That's gonna be the title of my memoir. Just saying things. Also, I had a guy, Nate. Speaking of cannabis, the guy who wrote in the question, I texted him about. He texted me about getting his gift card, and so he was telling me how much he loves the show. He said he does sleep studies, and he was talking about how he listens to our show to get away from the anxiety of watching people stop breathing in their sleep. And it reminded me, remember, James, I told him the story. What was it, like 3 years ago now?
That was 2018 in Nuremberg.
Yeah, it was in Nuremberg. I know. Yeah. And you the next morning you go, dude, have you ever gotten a sleep study? No, why? You stopped breathing. And then I was gasping.
Todd did the same thing.
Yeah, but Todd has a CPAP now. You don't stop breathing anymore.
Well, that first time that we went to Europe together, I remember that first hotel when we were in Germany, I think in Dusseldorf, the walls were kind of thin and I could hear him snoring, and he did the same thing. It would stop and I'd sit there and count in my head, and then he'd and they do it again. It's like, dude, you're not going to die.
I've never seen you so scared in my life, besides the next morning. You're like, you have to. I
want to say there was one. It had to have been almost 3 minutes. You didn't breathe at all. And I was like, I was about to get up and start shaking you.
And you told me that. And I was like, you know what sucks is I can't hold my breath underwater for like 40 seconds before I have to come up. If I could hold my breath for 3 minutes, I'd be a freaking fish.
And you've never had a study done, right?
I did. I've had 2. I had one not that long after that trip because James scared me. And so I had it, and they're like, "Oh, no, you're fine." And the take home one's what I did because it's much cheaper. And then, then right before COVID, a few months before the lockdowns and stuff, it was like January. My wife goes, "You stop breathing in your sleep," and I was like, "What?" And I had another study done, and that study was like, "No, you're fine." So one of these, I'm more mad that I can't. That I can hold my breath in my sleep for almost 3 minutes, but I can't underwater because I would probably be a much better swimmer if I could hold my breath longer. But I thought that was worth bringing up, James, because he was like talking about sleep studies. I was like, maybe I could get a sleep study out of this. Hey, man, Nate, hit me up if you want to study someone to see, because it probably varies depending on how hard I had been drinking the night before or how many bowls of cereal I had. But anyways, so yeah, Nate. Then the last thing I will mention before we get on to the questions, let me put it on the screen there. Bam. Oh no, I put on the wrong one. I'm not going to edit that out, but let's pretend. Bam, there's the right one. The recipe for this month is the California Common. I accidentally had Todd's ESB still on there. But the California Common, and I left Imperial Pub on there. It actually comes with Imperial Cable Car, which is a fantastic strain. It's the only strain you should be using if you're brewing a California Common. I would imagine a Kentucky Common uses it too, but I don't know. It's a steam beer, right? That's what we're brewing. The California Common. Todd, the yeast came in. Are you going to brew it this weekend? Are you in a brewing mood?
No, I'm leaving town.
Oh, you are
going hunting.
That's why I'm coming up next week. That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah, that's right. Help out poor.
But you'll be there next week. You could brew it.
I could. I guess I could.
Yeah, I have a system at home. You could stay up all night, brew beer. It'd be fun. I did it
Would
a
it
few
be
weeks
fun
ago.
for me though? Because then I'd have to do the brewing and the cleaning. And, and I can't even imagine how pissed you'd be if you came.
Oh, and the barn is super clean too.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Nice. Good.
So if I come back and it's all on you because I wasn't there.
Wait, I'm going to take photos of what it looks like when I get there and when I leave, so I have some kind of photographic evidence. But
yeah,
with all the yeast is there, James, you could brew it if you wanted to Friday or next week, anytime. I got y'all extra packs so that y'all could brew it early before we ship them out at the end of this month.
No, it's been so long since we've had steam beer. I'm really looking forward to it.
It is. And I think it's worth mentioning that not a steam beer. James recently had a New Belgium fat tire. And you were amazed by how close it was to an alt beer. Is that right?
Yeah. It was shockingly, because we just had that on the 300th episode last week. So I don't remember where I was at, and I saw it on the shelf. So I thought, I'm going to grab some, and cracked it open. And of course, that's when I texted you guys, is I never really put those two together, but that grain bill's real close. I mean,
maybe that's something we need to brew.
It was shockingly similar to a Schlussel.
We had a fat tire clone, I think, that we did for a Chub Club, like when we first launched it a while ago. I'd be interested to have you brew your alt beer and brew that and do a taste test on it, because I haven't had a fat tire in a very long time. It's one of those beers, kind of like a Yingling, where you could get burned out easy. And then you go a while without having it, and you try I forgot how good that is. Like I actually really like Yingling. That might be an unpopular opinion in our industry, but I'll have one like once every other month, and it's like, damn, that is a good lager. That's a really.
I had one last night. I had a Yingling Light last night. Not even a Yingling.
I'm not familiar. What's that? Is a pale lager? I mean, it's like a Miller Light or something.
Somebody left it in my barn, so. They left quite a few of them in my barn.
Now that Yingling is in our state, isn't that kind of funny how it is the new Shiner or Fireman's 4 in regards to, like you say, craft beer? Oh, I'm going to go to the store and get some craft beer. The average person's going to go see Yingling on it and be like, okay, yeah, that's craft beer. Right? Do you know what I mean by that? Like, that's what it seems like it's becoming now that it's available on shelves in our state, where before someone's like, I'll get us some craft beer, and it was always Shiner Bock or Fireman's 4 for my 20s and beyond. But
it's called Yingling Flight. F-L-I-G-H-T. Yeah.
Cool story. So, what is it though? It's a pale lager. It's just a pale American lager.
Yeah. It's.
Well, you had it. What it looked like? I know you didn't drink out of the can.
It's darker than. It was a little darker than I thought it would be. Even though I look online at their picture, it doesn't seem dark at all. But it was just a light beer. I mean, I don't know. It's an American light. Lager beer. It's
with rice.
I think it was.
You think it was like a cream ale, basically?
It was very low in alcohol. It didn't have. It had more hops than a Budweiser. Like it was a light beer.
Okay, interesting.
It was good. It was okay.
Would you go out of your way to have another one?
No.
Oh, okay. So nothing special.
But not because it's not good, just because it's just not the style of beer I normally
drink. And so it's just not. It was decent. It just wasn't exceptional.
Well, it was just a real light beer.
Well, so is a Frou, but I'll have a Frou every day.
Frou has a really different taste to it, though.
I know, but I just mean Frou. There's nothing remarkably punch in the face, which is what I love about it. It's just it's like drinking a cloud.
Yeah, it's just a normal, somewhat boring Kolsch. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, cool. Just kind of like this episode's becoming a boring episode. Exactly. I'll get us the questions.
Exactly.
With that being said, hold on. It's time for listener feedback. We do have listener feedback. It's from our good buddy Jeff from Iowa.
Hey, gentlemen, and Josh. This is Jeff from Iowa, the Evil Pug, and just want to say happy 300th episode. And a little listener feedback, a PSA for everybody. Even if you get your spunding valve pre-assembled, double check which way the arrow's going. Mine was put together wrong, and didn't release any pressure during my fermentation. And when I finally got it assembled right and put on, it sprayed beer all over my wall. So just a little double check. Always look.
Yeah,
Congrats,
I've actually
guys. Keep it up. Bye.
Jeff, thank you for leaving the feedback.
That's funny he mentioned that, because I was reading reviews on a spunding valve on another company's website, and there were several bad reviews because it was sent to the customer set up backwards.
That's what happened to him. That's exactly what happened. He had texted me or through Instagram, I forget how, but
that's what happened to James too.
Yeah.
Oh, you did put it on wrong. That's right.
I remember I did that Oktoberfest and put it on backwards, and it went.
If anybody orders a spunding valve, we got to make sure James didn't put it together, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Jeff is. I want to take issue first off, gentlemen and Josh. I caught on to that, Jeff. Also, though, I'm
surprised he got the question on. That's what I was trying to figure.
Because then I get to tell. I'm a storyteller. I love telling them. My favorite thing is he had reached out to James one time about sending us shirts. And James is too nice and has a much better body image perception of me than I have of myself, because James had him send me a medium and I still can't fit into the damn shirt. I'm so fat. No, I'm not that fat, but the medium shrink, and it was a real cotton shirt. And I like tight shirts, but goodness, I want to wear the Evil Pud shirt. I wear it sometimes to exercise in, Jeff, but now I'm lying because I don't exercise. But anyways, we always appreciate listener feedback. You do get a $25 gift card to catconnection.com when you submit listener feedback, or like our first question of the day, Clive from Massachusetts, when you submit a voicemail.
Josh, Todd, James, been listening to you guys for a number of years now. I actually met you guys back at HomebrewCon in Providence, Rhode Island. But anyway, I finally have a question for the three of you. And that question is, I put a new tank of CO2 on my system down in my basement. I come back the next day and the tank is empty. Whoopsie daisy. What do I do? I've done the whole thing with foam. You create foam and you put it over like all the the taps and the couplers and everything. And I've done that, but I still seem to be having something leaking. What kind of tips do I need to be aware of? This is Clive calling from Sheffield, Massachusetts, and I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say about it. So thank you. Bye-bye.
First off, HomebrewCon Rhode Island was so fun. And that was the last one we were able to go to in person, I do believe. So I always appreciate that. I appreciate that one. What was the name of the restaurant that you took us to, Todd? James and I went to the first
I don't remember
I just
the name
remember
of it. It was really good.
Anyway.
That was the one the lady on the plane told us that's where we needed to go, remember?
Yeah, totally. And we did.
So good.
And it was very expensive. But you felt like it was worth it. But anyways, we're no strangers to leaks, because with the draft system, regardless of whether you're using barb connections or MFL or duo-tight, John Guest, whatever, leaks can happen. And it doesn't take a big leak to lose a lot of CO2. So, Todd, what is your rules?
I lost 10 pounds last weekend.
Oh,
in one night.
I didn't know that. What happened? When your distillate, I'm assuming?
I mean, I knew I had a leak. I often have leaks because I brew all the time, and I put new kegs on, and I'll get a leak on a keg, or it's always a different place. This one really surprised me because it just was so quick, and it was actually a 10-pound cylinder, and I'm not absolutely sure if it was full or not, but I think it was full. It's because sometimes I grab them and use them for something and then put them back. But it was totally empty, not a bit of CO2 in it. So the first thing I did was I pulled the pressure relief valve on each keg to see if the keg had pressure in it. When I pulled the pressure relief valve on the 10-gallon corny keg that I have in there, it didn't have any pressure at all. So I was like, it's probably from here that we're having the issue. I sprayed soapy water on everything in there, but especially around that keg. Both of the posts were loose. So the posts it was leaking from the post. Actually, not from the top of the post as you would normally have it, but actually from the bottom of the post underneath where the threads are.
Had you just replaced O-rings or something? How did those get loose? Just from jostling?
It wasn't the O-rings. It was the
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's
post.
what I'm saying. How did the physical post get loose? I mean, from
I had never used that keg before.
Did you not do the keg connection 3-step process to make sure the keg was fine?
Well, what's that?
the cleaning, the rinsing, the pressure testing, and the I don't know.
Yeah, well, I did clean it and all that, but I guess I just didn't notice they were loose. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where it came from. But I think I get more than one leak at a time because I've got 6 beers, I've got 2 secondary regulators, I've got a carbonation. So what I've started doing is I turn off any valve I'm not using first of all. Yep. But he said he put foam on it. I don't know what that means.
I imagine
really.
he probably means the soapy water test.
He probably sprayed it with soapy water.
Yeah.
Okay.
Check for foam.
I mean that's how I always find it is spraying it with soapy water. But spray it on everything. Don't sometimes I've found it and it was it was at the tank where the regulator fits onto the tank was leaking. I've found it where it was a
gauge on a regulator.
Gauge on a regulator. That's a really hard one to find. It's usually not a very big leak.
What about on the Sherwood valve where the stem goes through the valve body?
No way.
We've seen them leak there.
Yeah. I've seen it leak on the weep hole of the regulator. MFL, any MFL connection is a likely suspect. But don't forget about kegs, not just so. You got to spray it with the disconnects. If you're having a leak and you can't find it for a long time, spray it with the disconnects off and then spray it with the disconnects on. Because the leak I found before that, which was more than a week before, it was actually leaking at the keg. And the hose was pulling on the disconnect a little bit. And I think it was just pulling it a little past the O-ring and it was leaking there. So, you could find it with soapy water that you either spray or drip on. I've got a bottle that you can squeeze the bottle and it kind of shoots it out of a little tube, and I've used that a lot. You'll find it eventually if you try everything. If you absolutely cannot find it and you're at wit's end, I've had people submerge them in water before. When you submerge it in water, it's really not good to submerge the gauges on the regulator, but pretty much everything else could be submerged in water. I mean, it's not always easy to find it. And again, this happens to me all the time. I mean, if you've got enough beers on tap and you're doing enough moving around, which I do constantly, you're going to develop leaks in places and you just have to find them.
You do. So, you are like a commercial bar, the way that you rotate through kegs and stuff. So it's not surprising to me that happens. But yeah, I would think, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, the soapy water test to me is like as foolproof as it gets if you can't submerge. And submersion is not applicable for a lot of people for logistical reasons. Like, Todd, I mean, you're going to get a big old container thing and take it to your keezer and submerge.
Well, no, what I'm talking about is so he's got a regulator. I forgot what he said. How many taps he has? Well, let's say he has 2 taps. I mean, you basically, if it's you basically take your air distributor, your gas lines with the disconnects on them and put all that underwater and see if you get bubbles. I mean, I've had people do that and find stuff they weren't able to find anywhere else. But the fact of the matter is that could have been found with soapy water too, if the soapy water had been put in the right place.
That's what I was going to get to is I think I think of it as going through where the origins of the gas and everywhere gas would go. So I start at the tank and like James said, like start squirting on the Schrader valve, or not the Schrader valve, the Sherwood valve. And that whole, the whole assembly of that, and then where the regulator is connected to it, and every part of the regulator, like you said, the weep hole, which kind of makes sense, air will come through it, but it's not supposed to consistently be coming through it like that, or at the connection between whether it's...
Well, no, I mean, it is. That's where the air escapes if you've got a problem with your regulator.
If you have that's what I meant. I meant they're only...
Okay.
It's made to have air come out when there's an issue with the
Yeah,
regulator.
if you got air coming out of the weep hole, it's something you need to address.
Correct. The regulator needs to be serviced. Yeah.
And the reason it's there is because on a high, if basically what's underneath what we call the bonnet or the top part that goes that screws down over the bottom part, everything in there is supposed to be low pressure. And then everything on the inside of the metal part, you've got your high pressure, and then you've basically got a little valve in between there. We call it a cartridge, and that's where you get high coming in low. So if it's coming out of the weep hole, it's because you're getting high pressure, and if there wasn't a weep hole, that would eventually rupture.
Yeah,
so,
it would be bad. But I'm saying, like, if you go down the line of how a draft system works and checking it with soapy water, at some point, assuming you're spraying every orifice that gas could possibly escape, you're gonna find the leak. It's gonna be tedious. It's not gonna be enjoyable. But in the early days of my career under Todd Burns and doing pressure testing and all that, I had, you mix up the soapy water. I didn't like for the jar to get all bubbly and whatever. It was water with soap in it. I'd get a paintbrush. I think that was your method at first, Todd, or maybe it was Liz's, whoever trained me, and go over all the places on the keg where there could be a leak, around the lid, on the post, and all that, and applying the soapy water without it already being this big bubbly mess allowed, if there was a leak, for it to be displayed that much easier, right?
Yeah, and when he said put bubbles on it, the reason that I was kind of like, what does that mean? Is you really don't want to spray it so hard that you're making bubbles. You want to get that liquid on there without any bubbles in it whenever possible.
Right. That's why I said that last part was if you're already having bubbles, that's going to complicate the troubleshooting. If your solution's already kind of shaken up in bubbles, it will bubble when the gas is hitting it. The soap in the water is what's going to allow it to kind of bubble if there's a leak present, even if it's a tiny one. Because sometimes you're lucky. I will not screw on a disconnect all the way, and you'll hear the hiss, and okay, boom, I could hear it. But other times it could just be a barely tiny little nanomillimeter of space, and it's just escaping, and you don't know, unfortunately, till your tank is gone. But you get a new tank on or a reserve tank up, and you start troubleshooting immediately so that it doesn't happen again. Because we've had people who've lost a lot of gas because they just weren't able to troubleshoot in a good time or in a quick time where their leak was coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had people really call us up, and they were very, very mad because they're like, I got a system from you and all my CO2 leaked out. Well, after we put it all together, you still got to check everything when you put it in and you put your system in, because things loosen up. It's particularly swivel nuts going on the disconnect, going on the aired manifold, anywhere where you have a connection, you want to make sure it's tight, and you want to test it. It makes a washer could have been left out. You never know. So just test everything.
I'll add that to the list of videos we need to make of Todd Burns. Remember, we've had really good feedback on those beer line cleaning kit, that video we did for it in the instructional.
Oh, good.
But we did have someone recently say, like, I wish your kids had instructions on it. And not that we need instructions for how to use a kegerator kit, but the checking for a leak would probably be just as viewed as your foam video is for resolving that problem, which I don't know if you noticed, that gets thousands of views every week now. People, these are issues, like Todd was saying, that they're not uncommon. It's an unfortunate reality. You're going to lose CO2 at some point to a leak if you have a draft system. But knowing the best way to troubleshoot is going to be your best friend in preventing it or resolving it quickly to prevent it from happening in the future. What are you looking up, Todd? You put your glasses on for it.
That is something we definitely need to do. We need to do a video on that.
Yeah, finding a leak in your draft system.
Right.
Or resolving a leak, or how did I word it? How to find a CO2 leak. Is that going to hit keywords for people looking up like home? Because having you don't want CO2 leaks in your home. That's how you die, right? You have
absolutely. And that's another thing too. When this guy talks about going down into a basement and he had a CO2 tank that completely leaked out, I mean, that could be a dangerous situation. I mean, if you're in a real confined space like that, you could fill the whole room full of CO2 and not have any oxygen in there.
That's actually a really good point.
I mean, that's why restaurant walk-ins have CO2 monitors.
Yep.
I imagine if he has I mean, CO2 monitors are pretty standard nowadays, aren't they? For just, I mean, my wife,
where they have CO2, I think some areas it's mandatory.
My wife put them up when we bought this house. Like we had them from our old house, that like auxiliary ones that you buy and put up, hang up yourself. And she brought them with her because I don't know why. My wife watches these like How You Could Die or Million Ways You Can Die, and then tries to cover our bases. What happened? Your computer?
Oh, I was pulling up that video and it's got sound and I don't know how to turn it down.
We can't hear it.
Oh,
yeah.
Good.
Oh, wait, is it one of those videos? Okay.
I don't know what that sound is.
I don't know what that is. No, move on to the next question.
Okay, I got it to shut up.
Clive, thank you so much for submitting that question. But yeah, Todd, we should maybe do because we could use your keezer because you've had, like you said, it's not unique to someone's setup, and it's not that they did something wrong. It's just the nature of the beast of having a draft system. And
absolutely.
And when you're switching out a bunch of kegs or going through a lot of beer, it means you're enjoying it. So it's just one of the maintenance things that you got to do. But anyways, thank you for submitting that question, Clive. A great reminder again, if and when you submit a voicemail to 325-305-6107, you do get a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com. If you leave us a text to that same number or go to homebrewhappyhour.com, click on the submit a question link at the top of the page, you still get a $15 gift card. So our second question came from our buddy Greg, and it was a text message to 325-305-6107, and he wrote, "Masters of Pressure Fermentations, I come to you for help. I'm wanting to try it, so I bought the same from Zilla. Do you have a dedicated CO2 tank for fermentation now, or do you take it off the fermenter when you need it to serve or force carb? Help." I do want to reiterate, we are the masters of pressure fermentation now. Anything we put our foot in and dive into, we become the masters of. That's kind of why y'all listen to this show, for our expert solitary opinions. Stop laughing. But no, I think he's not, speaking of not being unique, he might have it misunderstood. Guys, James, you've been pressure fermenting a lot lately. Mm-hmm. You don't leave your CO2. You set the FermZilla at 10 and you take it off, right? You're not leaving the gas on it in perpetuity.
Yeah, no, I only do that whenever I go to move it over because, even at 10, it's going to maintain 10 PSI the whole time it's fermenting, even after it's done. But that won't get it out of the fermenter. So that's when I put the gas back on it when I'm kegging it.
Right. So in theory, a person wouldn't need to have multiple CO2 cylinders. I mean, I'll always say this, and I'm from a privileged thing because of what I do in the industry and blah, blah, blah. Having at least 2 cylinders is, I think, a bare minimum, because when you lose one to a leak or you need to do something simultaneous to serving, having 2 is just like, it makes life so much easier. When one is out, even if the second one's just a reserve, your first one goes out, you replace it with the second one, and you go get the first one filled. It's just a nice, it's just a nice system. Or you get Vilver to fill it because Todd refuses to. But
or you could fill it yourself.
I am terrified of that machine. But for
so I just had 3 filled because I lost that one, and then I had used up 2 smaller ones, and yeah, I have like 8 at home. Yeah, I keep like around 8 at home at all times.
The big one in your keezer is a 10 pound or a 20 pound? It's a 10, right?
10. And because I've tested so many regulators over the years, I have an array of regulators. Although I've pretty much gone to everything I'm actually using now is all CM Becker, CMB regulator, or Taprite. So I think I'd still have one Italian one there, but yeah.
Right. So, but let's water this or dumb it down. Greg, you're not dumb, but let's dumb down this scenario. A guy is trying to stay on a budget, James. He has one 5 pound that he'd like to be the only cylinder he has to have. If he's going to pressure ferment, when he gets the wort into there, pitched his yeast, closes it up, that's when you just apply 10, take off the gas, and put on the spunning valve, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
And then you monitoring it to make sure it's staying at least at 10, because the whole point of the spunning valve is to regulate that it doesn't go too high. So
right. So letting gas off, and you don't even have to put CO2 in it to bring it up to 10. I mean, it's going to come up to 10 pretty quickly.
Oh, okay. Oh, I mean, I know it's going to create its natural, but I thought putting it up to 10 was to try to, what's the word I'm looking for? Like make sure nothing off can happen, or not immobilize. Oh, what is the word?
No, you're right. Yeah. I mean, that's the right way to phrase it.
Okay. You know what I mean? Like you want it, but do you not do it immediately once you pitch the wort and the yeast into the pressurized firm vessel?
I do, yeah.
Okay, but you're saying
I have 27 regulators and 10 cylinders, so why wouldn't I?
I have 1,800. Golly, no, but like with you, James, even in the brew room, I know y'all have a few CO2 cylinders in there, not counting all the cylinders you have access to. But do you think it? I mean, with pressure fermentation, we've already determined you don't have to keep the tank dedicated to that, but
no, I mean, it'd be nice if I had the ability to do that, then I would. But tanks are so small and you can move it around. That's what we do. We have one in our brew room for forced carbonation in the conical, or also moving into keg. And because we have an extra one to use, but you can definitely use the one off your kegerator.
Exactly. And again, to reiterate, because I think I've gotten variation of this question before, especially when we started talking about pressure fermentation, is people think, oh, I have to keep, kind of like you keep the gas on your keg when you're dispensing. The only reason you're keeping gas on the keg when you're dispensing is for that push. You have to have continuous gas.
You're pushing the beer.
For the push.
When you're pressure fermenting, you're doing just the opposite. You're trying to get CO2 off, not get CO2 in.
Right. Explain that.
Well, I mean, it's just like when you're fermenting and it bubbles in the bubbles in whatever you have, whether you have a bubbler on the top or you've got a tube that's going into a bucket, it's bubbling all the time. Well, you still have to get all that CO2 out, because eventually, if you didn't get it out, it would get up to the pressure where things would start to explode. So, you've got to get the pressure out, and the way you do that is a spunding valve releases it at 10. So it's just like a regulator in reverse. A regulator, I mean, it's actually letting stuff out and then stopping at below 10.
Right. And
letting what stuff? I mean, CO2.
And he has the same. Y'all use Firmzillas. I have a Firmzilla, and I have that Fermenter King from Anvil. Fantastic product. Those have, this is where y'all might have to correct me because I might be wrong, but James, the spunding valve is either the primary or secondary place that gas should be able to escape in case of overpressurization, because there's still a pressure relief pull tab on those things. So in theory, it's double proofed, right?
Yeah, I think that one's 15 psi. If I'm not.
So when
I believe that's right.
When you put yours on the wrong way, what was it up to when you got back to the vessel?
The gauge was maxed out and it was pegged,
but it only goes to 15. I think it was blown out of 15.
Okay,
because
okay. That's what I was about to ask. Was did you? So obviously, because it didn't explode, the pressure relief valve did its job. Thank God.
I'm assuming it did. There was no mess on top of it when I came in. It was awful pressured up, but it held.
And no beer
I foamed
everywhere?
Like crazy when I pulled the pressure relief valve off.
Yeah. No, but it didn't spray all over the walls like it did, Jeff?
Well, if I removed the splunding valve and just stuck a disconnect on, I'd sprayed foam for a half an hour.
Oh my God.
But I bled it off through the release, the safety release on the lid.
Yeah, the pull tab, right?
And I put a towel around it to catch the foam, and that mitigated a lot of the mess that would have been made if you just let it gas out on its own.
Oh my gosh, and I guess it's easy to put it on wrong, or I mean, in Jeff's case, and I think in your case, it came assembled incorrectly. But
I took it apart, cleaned it, put it back together.
Oh, okay, but again, how easy it is to use those duotites. It's, you know what I mean, like. The one thing I'll say has always been my favorite thing about pin lock kegs is you cannot put the wrong disconnect on the wrong post. And that I do it on ball lock kegs all the time, and they're not impossible to get off, obviously, but they're so terrible. Like the millisecond after I put on the gas on the liquid side, I'm like, son of a gun, because I know it's going to hurt my fingertips, or I'm going to have to get something to pull it off, or call my dad over.
Okay, so it's 35 psi. The 15 psi is the one that we have on the spike, because the spike is not rated past 15 psi, and the Firmzilla is rated to at a higher pressure. So that one is 35. So you probably got up to 35. That's some serious pressure fermenting there.
That terrifies me. And I will say, Greg, I'm
Why? Why does it terrify?
Pressure, I don't know. It's like electricity scares me too. Do I have to explain myself on everything? I have a fear of flying. You want to go into other stuff? Electricity is probably my biggest fear, actually. If I had to of all the things I fear that could happen to me, getting electrocuted, it's like my number one fear in life. I hate it.
I guess that electric company thing I was thinking about starting, you don't want to be a part of it.
I'm done. I'm gone. I couldn't do it. The kegs and all this stuff, that's fine. Oh my God, I'm terrified of electricity. But anyways, no, Greg, to make your question, because I drug it out and I apologize, but no, you can use the same cylinder for pressure fermenting as if you're gonna put it right back in your keg, in your kegerator or keezer to dispense or whatever you need it for. But again, not to sound too sales pitchy, but having two cylinders, man. And they do happen to be back in stock at kegconnection.com. Go get
as of
today.
Yeah, got them in. Finally. God, we've been waiting forever. We cannot get cylinders.
I just realized how good a timing that this question was. People are gonna sniff me out thinking that I gotta add that to the show notes now. CO2 cylinders, here's the link. Go buy them. They are in stock though. They're in stock.
Well, and they're Thunderbird. They're made in the USA, and they have a made in the USA Sherwood valve on them. So they're really, really good cylinders. I'm so happy to get them back in stock. I miss CO2 cylinders.
And for the foreseeable future, right? It's not one of those.
Yeah, we have a large blanket order, and they'll be coming in on a real regular basis. So
yeah. So Greg,
we our old source just went up to the point where they're almost retail. So we had to work on a new solution. Well, and then the source that we're getting it from now, we've bought from before, but when COVID hit, all their facility, their entire production went to oxygen cylinders for over a year.
Yeah, so, for medical. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes more sense.
And there is still a huge shortage of CO2 cylinders on the market. If you go to a welding shop or something like that, where they used to just have rows of them and stuff like that. My local welding shop, when I was in there the other day, they had one cylinder that they would.
Are you serious?
That they would had available for trade on a 5-pound.
Ooh, see, I when things don't affect me personally, I kind of like, it's not that big a deal. But I've been reading more and more because they've been saying the CO2 shortage thing since basically April 2020. Like, crap, but we haven't really felt it, and I guess our local breweries haven't really. But you're right. I mean, it's different. I guess depending on where you're at is where you're going to be most affected by it.
Yeah. I guess at some point we'd have to pressure ferment and then find a way to capture the.
That's right.
Capture the gas, James.
Reuse.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I got some gas for you to capture. Anyways, Greg, thank you so much for submitting that question. Moving on to question number 3. It was our buddy Travis from Dallas who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Travis wrote, "Hey fellas, this is Travis from Dallas. First, I want to say that I'd love to come brew with you guys. I have to see with my own eyes if you," talking to me, "really don't help out on brew days." That's mean. "I do have a question, and it's about double brew days. In my case, it's a triple brew day. I have an old school M&B mash and boil without a pump. I want to brew 15 gallons of a family favorite IPA for the upcoming holiday season. Last year, my fiver," talking about his keg, "went dry fast, so I know now that I need lots more of it this year. Since it's the same style, do I need to do much more than rinsing after each batch, or would you do more thorough cleaning before starting your next mash? I love the podcast and congratulate you on number 300, Travis." You can go brew with them all you want, Travis. I don't care.
Or go brew with Josh. Then you'll do everything.
And then you do everything.
You really get a good brewing experience.
I need to find a way to monetize that. Like, brew with Josh, and it's them paying me to come do everything. $50, guys. I'm not going to charge you a lot, okay? We'll still ride on Tom's dime. Okay, first off, the obvious answer that y'all would say is get a Brautag or get a Herm system and brew 15 gallons in a proper vessel, or get a bigger setup if you don't want to do Herms or whatever. But for someone who, people do double brew days on smaller things because they're trying to do different styles. But what would you say, James? I'll kick it to you first. He's going to do the same style every time. Can he be a little more lackadaisy on the hygiene?
I would. I mean, if I'm doing 3 batches in one day, yeah, I would just rinse it and continue brewing.
It's gonna be a long ass day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It'd be a
I mean,
really long day.
you're right, James. He doesn't need to do a lot of cleaning. I mean, all you're doing is getting your clean water again. And
yeah,
I mean,
and you're
gosh,
using the
just-
same recipe, the same hops, everything. Now, I would say if you're going to do an IPA and then you want to do something else, yeah, you want to completely clean,
Absolutely,
because you don't want any of that other recipe blending into the new one. But if you're brewing the same thing, just rinse it and go.
I'll say the rinse and go. I mean, really, too. Maybe people are gonna call me out on this. What my dad and I were using the Anvil Foundry. When we were done, we did a thorough rinse, but we didn't actually thoroughly clean it till the next brew day. Like I didn't end a brew day with, unless I absolutely had to. If something was stuck to it that the brew clean was necessary to get it to come off the side, because that happens sometimes, right, Todd, with your vessels where it dries up and scrubbing it's not going to get it off. Okay, well, I'm going to let this soak for an hour and brew clean. But if you're pretty quick about it, you can rinse it right when you're done. You know, after you've done your boil or after you've transferred, if it's in an all-in-one. You can get all that stuff out. Pardon me, your boil's happening in a different kettle. While the boil's going on is when I would rinse out the basket, the all-in-one container, everything that's left. So you don't have to do some real thorough brew clean or powdered cleaning solution type of thing. You can save all the thorough cleaning for when you're going to brew again. Or some people like,
Jonathan actually mentioned that when he brewed on the system that you'd brewed with before.
Well, what did he? Oh, well, on the Foundry or on what? Or the grain farm?
You had brewed on it the time before. It was absolutely filthy, and he went on and on about it. So.
No, I didn't brew.
He was taking stuff apart, going, "Oh my god,
that wasn't me. That wasn't me." I'm pretty sure that was our old salesman, because I'd never used that grain father in my life, Todd. But yeah, you're right. You're right. So what Todd's implying, if you haven't caught on to it, if you haven't inferred, he is saying if you put off cleaning, there's a good chance you'll forget to clean thoroughly.
Well, not only that, but I mean, you want to get all that gunk out of there when once it's dried up and everything, it's a lot harder to clean.
And I think, well, what he was finding was filth in the pump. That's an extra step to have to clean. Greg here is not, or pardon me, Travis on this question is using a mash and boil without a pump. If anything, that makes the whole process that much easier in regards to cleaning.
Yeah. I mean, that's a no-brainer, I think.
We still have that, or
just
is it
just keep brewing. Start your next batch. Yeah.
Or
get a 15-gallon system so you can just brew one time and instead of spending 18 hours brewing that day.
What's the most, Todd? I know you've done a double brew day on a Brautag.
Yes,
James,
yes.
What's the most you've brewed in a day, James? How many brew days have you
45 gallons.
But it was one big batch, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was too much. And we were doing everything kind of like a cooler brew, basically. So it was real labor intensive, and it would take all day long to do it. I don't know if we could do a double batch with that system. With this system here, yeah, I could probably do 2 or 3 in a day.
And Todd, the one you did 2 in a day, it wasn't the same style. You did 2 totally different styles.
Totally different styles, yeah.
So was that a 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. brew day?
No, because once I finished my boil, I was immediately able to start warming the water again on the other side. So, I could put the electricity over and start warming my next batch up. So once I was done, and it was, I basically had the first one in the fermenter, I was already starting on the second one.
Interesting.
I mean, I already had it started. I was already mashing. So
I was daydreaming a little bit. James, do you know if Wes, like, 'cause that's the only commercial brewer I really know?
Yes, he has.
What is it like on
he told
those
us
systems?
that yesterday, right, James?
No way.
James? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was here yesterday, and he mentioned that he had done a double batch.
Now that's got to be an all-day thing on a beer, because what is that, a 15 barrel?
It's not that bad because everything's automated. Think about it this way: he's got his hot liquor tank is already to temp, and it holds like 1,500 gallons. He's got pumps on everything, valves on everything. He even has a cold water tank that's got cold water in it, ready to go. He's got a glycol chiller that's chilling the cold water. He's got a gas-fired HLT So all he has to, and he's got meters. He pumps in the mash, the strike temp for the mash, dumps in the grain, gets it going. And then once he pumps that off, the biggest thing would be dumping all the old grain, the spent grain. He's got a huge trash cart that he dumps that into. And if he's doing the same batch, he just does a light rinse and then adds his strike water for his next batch, because he can do this simultaneously while he's boiling off with our Brewtog system. We can only have one element going at the same time. So a lot of people would want the controller able to do 2 batches. It's got to be 60 amp capable, because you're running 30 on each element.
We've actually talked about doing that, right, James?
Yeah. It just takes some different internal switches, and it's got to be able to handle 60 amps service coming in. So it's important for the service on the wall to be 60 amp compatible as it is the controller, because you want to be able to run both burners at the same time. So as you're mashing, you get done with your sparge and you've got your water in your boil pot, you can start adding and heating up in the HLT as you're boiling your next batch. So when that's done, cool it down, shut the burner off, then you're ready to sparge on the other one. And then you can do, if you have the ability to run 2 burners at the same time, you could probably do 4 batches in one day.
Dang. Sounds like y'all are talking electricity, and I started having a panic attack. But yeah, that sounds. Actually, I want to go. Yeah. I want to go over to Teddy's. I want to learn. I want to do a brew day over there sometime. I wonder, but does he brew on the weekends ever?
I think he brews whenever he can, but that's his
yeah.
busiest times, because I think they're open. Are they open on Thursdays?
I think it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So he told me he pretty much never brews on the.
Yeah,
weekend.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, because they've got customers, right? Yeah,
I know when we did the first batch, we did that amber ale. We did that on a Saturday. I got there at 8:00 that morning, and keep in mind, neither one of us had ever brewed on a big system like that, so we were kind of learning as we go. And Wes is pretty sharp. I left that night, and it was, I want to say it was like almost 10:00 that night.
Dang.
But we did 600 gallons.
I bet he's a lot faster than that.
Yeah,
now,
right.
Yeah.
As he's learned,
if he's doing
system.
double batches. Yeah, but it was nice to have the HLT right there. I mean, he could mix cold water into that, hit the right temperature. It was really cool the way that whole system worked. The cold water tank was really neat, because when he went, he had it was so cool. I know I'm rambling, but he had pure oxygen and a fitting on his cooler. So as it's coming out cold, he was oxygenating the wort as it was pumping into the fermenters.
That's cool.
So I thought that was so neat to see that, because all he had to do is add yeast and it'd go to town.
That is cool. Yeah, that's something I would love to learn on, or just do a film. Their spot is so photogenic or videogenic, if that's a word. It looks good. We did that Sam Becker showcase video at sambecker.com. I think the customer showcase tab is right there on the front at Teddy's. That was a lot of fun. Had a good day that day. But anyways, Travis, thank you so much for submitting that question. Our 4th and final question for this week came from our buddy Jason, who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Jason wrote, "Gents, I have a question. I'm finally planning out my teaser. However, where I want to keep the CO2 cylinder is 8 to 10 feet away from where I'd ideally like the regulator adjustment knob to be for my convenience. I'm wanting to keep the cylinder hidden, but I don't want to pull it out every time I need to make adjustments. Is this possible, or do regulators have to be connected directly onto the CO2 cylinder?" That's a Todd Burns question, if I've ever read one.
Did you say 10 feet?
He wants to keep it 10 feet or 8 to 10 feet away. He wants his cylinder here and something to make sure that he can adjust the pressure over here. What would you say?
Well, there's 2 ways to go about it. One is a high pressure hose, but I don't see a lot of high pressure hoses that long. I'm sure you could have one made, or maybe someone sells one online, but I mean, that you could have a high pressure hose that goes to the tank and goes to your primary regulator. I mean, what pretty much everybody does in this situation, when you're talking about people in bars and so forth, and they want to go that far, and they've got their tank here, and is that they're using secondary regulators. So, they're just taking at low pressure. You can't see the quotes unless you're watching the video. At low pressure, they take it over to the secondaries, but the low pressure can be 45 psi, let's say. So that if you're trying to force carbonate, you're trying to do anything else, you still have enough pressure on the other end where you could, with your secondary regulators, you can put this beer at 10 and this beer at 16 and do some forced carbon at 35 or 40 and do all of that without having to use a high pressure hose. I'm not a huge fan of high pressure hoses because in a home situation, because I just worry about the danger of having a high pressure hose. Think of it as like electricity, Josh. It's
oh God,
or pressure. Yeah, it's you basically have that line, and if you were to cut it with something, it'd be whipping around with 1,000 psi pressure on it.
It'd be terrifying.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, you got to be careful, but I would just I prefer to use low pressure and do secondary regulators in a situation like that.
And like we've clarified on episodes prior that why he was doing the air quotes is because your primary that you're sending to any secondary has to be higher than what you plan on setting the secondary to. And so if you're going to put your secondaries ranging between 8 and 12, then the primary needs to be sending out 30 or I'm making anything above that though, right, Todd? Anything above the 12, or does it have to be a certain amount above it for it just?
Yeah. I mean, if you're only going to do 10 or 12, I'm sure you could do it at 15,
right.
But remember on the longer the run, it's just like any other kind of hose. Whether it's you're running water through it or gas through it, you start to lose volume the longer it is and the more narrow the hose is. So, by having a higher pressure, you're putting a lot more volume over there. So sometimes you need volume as well.
Oh, that's
the reason you would.
And now
you do that.
You're talking about selling or finding them online, the high pressure hose. The ones at Cat Connection and our Amazon, those are 3 foot, right? Is
3 or 6.
Oh, they do come in 6. Okay.
Yeah.
But you think he'd have to have it custom made, but even then, like you said, running it much more than 6 is, you're just kind of, I don't know, man. Like you said, having something dangling across a room or in that kind of thing just lends itself to getting messed up or getting.
Yeah.
Or just the risk, there's lots of potential energy there.
There is.
I don't remember what the maximum, here it is, maximum pressure for AccuFlex, like the red 516 hosing is, it says 60 psi at 70 degrees. I will tell you this. I have run 100 psi in it before in the warehouse when we were doing something and it worked. And then the warehouse heated up to like 105. And it literally blew up like a balloon. Like it was so huge.
Did it?
So yeah.
Did it pop?
I don't remember. I don't think it did. I think if it popped, it would probably just get a hole in it and shoot out air. But
this was in the early days before you gifted your employees with air conditioning. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah,
well, some of our old videos, you had a regulator video back when Chudnow was a thing, which actually Chudnow's only been out of business, 3 years? And been that long.
It's been longer now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, I'm bad at time. But you did a video, it might have been on secondaries, but it was about Chudnow. And someone had asked me a year ago or so, like, where's that spot? Y'all don't film from there anymore. I'm like, yeah, because that spot is in the warehouse. And I think that's where the CO2 station is now, isn't it? Where you filmed that video? I'll have to send it to you.
I don't know.
I think I don't know.
That was Vilver's spot,
isn't it? Right?
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is
kind of where we fill the end of the stairs now, where we fill the CO2s. That was Vilver's area.
Yes. Yeah. And you could tell that Todd had cleaned it or whatever, because that's not what Vilver's spot normally looks like. So even way back then. I had the pleasure of doing inventory one time at his station, but we won't go into that. That's a whole different episode.
Oh, by the way, I looked it up, and videogenic is an actual word.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, and the 3 of us are videogenic. It means
so my mom
looking good on video.
Absolutely. Your hair
Nope.
your hair's looking great, Todd. I'll say you always manage to have good lighting and a
Thank
good
you.
head of
Appreciate
hair.
that. Yeah.
Not that I'm jealous. Someone who messaged me, it was my it was a comment my wife made where she goes, "Why do you always wear a hat? Everyone knows you're bald." it was so straightforward and mean. She's like, "You should just do the episode bald from now on." So maybe that'll be from 301 going forward. I'm just going to be bald egghead for the rest of. No more purple hat, Todd. You win. I'm done.
Oh, thank you. Oh, no more purple hat.
James, you
Worst
jerk,
hat
James. Jason, thank you so much for submitting the question. Gentlemen, that's all I have for this week. I appreciate y'all's time. We went longer than an hour. That's not always common. So I appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you.
And Todd, have a good trip next week. James, I'll see you Monday morning, friend.
Sounds good.
And that
all right, y'all work.
that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, where you can be Todd's best friend by leaving us a voicemail to 325-305-6107. For the best hops available online, give our friends at hopsdirect.com a visit and pick up what you need for your next brew day. Also, get a free pack of Imperial yeast along with premium recipes from us when you join the Trump Club. Go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and come brew with us. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thanks for listening.